You know what? This is being recorded. Let me not be myself.
What's up, y'all? This is Straight No Chaser, and we're back with another episode to tantalize the mind, get you thinking and talking about things that we talk in our group chat, and we want you to be able to have an opinion on that. So we have this podcast, and today we're joined by two very amazing women, women that we love, respect, look up to, like just absolutely adore. So wave your hand when I say it. So we have Ayisha. Well, she's at the top for me. So hi, Ayisha. And we have the amazing client, Malaika. Say it with us. And as usual, we're here. I'm Rohan. And my lovely lady friends are Bahar, Giselle, and Ayana. And we're going to get this started with a drinky drink.
Yes.
I'm so ahead of that. I just had another sip. I've been watching myself sip. Okay, already.
No, that's fine. It's good.
Because when I started, this glass was full.
I had two margaritas before I got here.
Oh, I've been drinking all day, but it's okay. We're here.
Good for you.
First drink for the day.
This
I'm
was
having
my first
tequila.
two.
What is everybody having?
Tequila.
Tequila.
White wine for me.
Blood of
We
a
drank-
Rasta man.
AKA Campari.
Blood of a Rasta man. Okay. Well,
Here's to a good episode, y'all.
Cheers, guys.
Yes.
All right.
Bro, can you see this?
is it the Friends shot glass?
Yeah, but do you see what's on the front? The light.
Sofa.
Is it?
What are you supposed to say?
Pivot.
Um,
And let's pivot the conversation back to Ayisha and Malaika and have tell us about themselves. Who'd like to go first? Raise your hand.
I'll go first. Hi, I'm Malaika. Very happy to be here. Coming to you from Spice Harmony Yoga Studio, as you noticed when I logged on our yoga wall. And yeah, I'm a professional yoga therapist and a doula. A doula is somebody who assists people who are pregnant, giving birth, and postpartum, and supports them through that journey, whether it's through loss or labor or breastfeeding, just offering that evidence-based support, but also just love and space because it's such a transformative time in people's life. So yeah, that's the bulk of what I'm doing these days.
We love that. And we love a good time on the wall with Malaika. I've
Mhm.
told that I need to go. And my mother's like, you have to do it. And I'm like, Mother, I can't touch my knees hurt. She's like, go.
That's why you
Gerald and
should
I
go.
You know, right?
I'm
Yeah.
just
Gerald and
afraid
I
that-
went. We had a good time.
On the
Yeah.
wall?
Yeah.
I just
You can
afraid that I'll end up like Pinocchio when he first tried to walk.
But she has some
And that's-
beginner ones too. I mean, trust, we definitely weren't not bending as much as we could or should be
Well,
able to.
and then also, what you guys got to experience is the bulk of what I do, which is besides the group classes, I do private sessions. So for you guys as a couple or individuals, you get to do a session that's just catered to you, which is actually a really nice way to enter into group classes, like to just say, you know what, let me get some one-on-one support so I could figure out what I need to do for my knee or whatever it is, So yeah.
All right, so watch out for Straight No Chaser at Spice Harmony Yoga Studio.
Yeah, listen,
How
we should
you
do an
saying that,
audio.
though?
We should do an audio class and just hear you guys also experiencing it, your commentary as we go through.
I mean, the commentary will be wild, eh? When you
Yeah.
see them telling them stretch out on the wall.
All I know is that you can't say downward dog in the space when because somebody will crack the joke.
Well,
Or just start
listen,
laughing
I
in
feel
general.
here's what I think. My suggestion is a straight no chaser reel at Spice Harmony. I think that would
Yeah.
be amazing. Mhm.
I like it.
It sounds like you need to fly down. This is important.
I know this is a
I think
conversation we have
so.
every week. Fly down for business reasons.
This is for business reason. It's a tax write-off, right?
Personal development.
Mental health.
There you
Mental
go.
health.
Yeah, there you
Come
go.
on, B.
Thank you.
Because I'm going to be very upset when she come in without him.
No, very happy when she comes back and she's doing all the stretchy things.
Yep.
Hey,
Mhm.
All
that's
the
true.
bendy
Look what I learned.
Listen, yes,
Look what
I agree.
do. Yep.
Mhm.
So Aisha, you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll throw some merch up in the air too.
The yoga wall is amazing. I love it. You can fly, you feel weightless. It's amazing. My name is Ayisha, and besides my day job, I run a camp called Camp Glow. It's a girls' empowerment camp for teenagers, which Malaika got me into in the first place. So thank you, Malaika. It's been 10 years. It's fun. It's empowering young women to be their best selves. And just today I was walking to work and I'm like, I want to do a Camp Glow. Even though I don't have the time, the money, or the energy, I still want to do another Camp Glow. It's so much fun. It's my reason for being right now.
Can you tell us a few of the activities that the girls do at the camp?
Oh, we do a lot of things from mindfulness. We do self-care. We learn to swim. We do yoga, which is very, very, very important. This year we did journaling. We try and do lots of arts and crafts. We listen to them. We learn about our bodies, reproductive health. They love those kind of conversations. Just listening to them too, which is really, really important. Giving them a safe space to talk, giving them a safe space to explore, giving them a safe space to ask questions and answering as honestly as we can. Yeah.
I think that's definitely like most important, giving them a safe space to talk and express themselves. Because it's like when you think back, it's like, did I have a space where I could ask questions? Like, when people would come into your high school and kind of talk to you about sex, and they'd have to either separate the girls and boys, or they wouldn't. And then now you don't want to ask any questions because the boys are like laughing at you. I remember one time this boy was like, "Oh, I can smell when you're on your period," and I'm like, "Who says that, bro? Like, shut up."
Mhm.
So give them that like safe space to like just express themselves. I think
Prepared to listen.
it's huge. It's a beautiful thing that you're doing, and you gave us the honor of like showing up and doing a chat. So I was the one able to go in and talk about periods, and I was like, I'm no expert in periods, but been having one, and like your vagina. It was on vaginas, and I was like, I've had my period before. I have a vagina. I think it's still there.
Or when it chooses to disappear, the period, I
You
mean, not the
know,
vagina.
The period or the vagina.
Sometimes she's here, sometimes she's not.
I also think Camp Glow is powerful because the camp experience allows young people to actually get away from their typical space and community. And when you just get to shake up what feels normal, even just for a moment, it can stimulate so much, because I think as human beings, we have a tendency to feel like what our experience is what everybody is, even though we know not everybody's having that experience. It's kind of like, this is what's right, this is how everybody is, this is how it just has to be. And I think what's amazing of taking secondary school girls who've mostly been with the people in their schools and then maybe in their churches and maybe in their community is to say, here's a bunch of other people from different places right here in Grenada who are the same as you in many ways and different from you in many ways. I think that mix up is something that is very stimulating for us, even as adults. It can be really exciting.
It's
I've never been on.
Shares that really enriched program with her own community, because at least about 3 of us got an opportunity to facilitate a session at Camp Glow. I remember the year that I came back from China, I did dance that year. I think you guys were at Milo. I'm sure Malaika has facilitated sessions, and then Ro recently won. So, it also shows the girls the beauty of having community, and community that, basically, I think, at least in our friend group, we have people from all sorts of walks of life and sectors. And one thing that we know is that we will show up and support each other in our personal journeys, but also in our professional journeys. So that also, I think the girls really get to see your people come out and really just
show up
embrace you,
professionally
show up
and
support you, and I think that also is a unspoken lesson that they get.
What I admire about the notion of it all, even though I wasn't able to come because I was working that day, the fact that in this modern time where you can get people to be excited about having a camp experience, because they don't like to do that anymore. They like to be at home,
on
their devices, so to be able to have that experience and then totally enjoy it for what it is, and then come back from it feeling like anew, and you have all these experiences and things to tell other people about. I think that is really great that people come out for it and it's still being done, because it's not happening as much as it was back.
It's hard to capture the youth's attention.
Yeah.
And to capture it and to capture it for so long, that is a task. That's a job. That is a job right there.
And it's teenage girls. They're mean sometimes. So to be able to get that part of them and to get them to, be so involved and to look forward to it and to love it, it's pretty great. Ayisha, you're doing a wonderful, wonderful thing.
And it's not just me. I have a whole team behind me that I couldn't do it without them. So kudos to everyone who's helped me who's done Camp Glow with me, because it takes a team. It takes a village, and it really, really does.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say that I've been having a conversation with, the friends of Camp Glow, this community around you that's been seeing all of you on the team and how it has grown, and also the setbacks. And I really believe that there is enough of us and enough brain power and just financial backing available to really support Camp Glow in a way by next year that it doesn't feel, because I know even during the week, sometimes you're struggling to get access to bottled water or something, So I know that that's also, the reality is it's not all fun and games. And I think being able to have that financial stability for these kinds of programs, we have to start thinking about longevity, right? How do we build so that it's not year to year that you're fighting to fundraise, especially as partnerships shift, So I think that's an important piece too.
I think this is a good opportunity for us to lend our platform. I think by now our listeners are sold on Camp Glow and want to support. So tell us how we can support Camp Glow and you.
We just got a bank account recently this year, so we're going to put it out there. I cannot do a GoFundMe because Grenada banks don't accept GoFundMe money like that. So I would need to get an outside bank account source, but I do have a local bank account with Co-op Bank, Glow Grenada Inc., where we could take donations. And it's not just monetary donations. I need to find a place for camp next year. I need to figure out how I'm writing this grant. So I need a lot of other kinds of support, but monetary donations are accepted also.
All right. Thank you, Ayisha.
Yeah, thanks for plugging that. We'll make sure we have that in there.
Shameless plug that everybody needs to know.
Yep. Straight No Chaser endorses this message.
Do you have a PayPal account? Aisha, do you have a PayPal account?
No, because I don't want the money to go to me. I want the money to go straight into the Camp Glow bank account. So the Co-op Bank doesn't allow input of PayPal.
Okay.
It's
allows out?
Yes.
Okay.
I do my personal, I have PayPal for my personal self, which I can use to purchase stuff, but you can't send me money on PayPal.
Mm, okay.
For bank, we'll have a
Come on,
discussion.
Grenada Banks. Come on,
Very
Grenada
soon.
Banks.
Come on,
No.
Grenada
I
Bank.
had no problems with PayPal and Scotia. I'm not sure what the new
We're
Republic
back to
scene
Stone
is.
Age now.
I don't know what the new Republic scene is. I've been really disappointed throughout this transition to Republic Bank. Let me just say, Scotia Bank, wherever you are, I miss you. I miss you.
Oh
Come
gosh.
out of Nova Scotia and come back in Grenada. Oh,
I miss Scotia Bank. I can't take Republic no more.
No, that's
Beat
it.
up.
You stress me out. I can't get no money.
We have some exciting topics planned for tonight, don't we?
We do, and we have some questions that we put up on our Instagram stories, like we usually do. We're just gonna basically jump into the questions that we asked our audience, and check out what their answers were, and just kind of go around the Zoom room and kind of give our own opinions on these questions as well. These are questions that we would have come up with just because the climate that we're in right now, I think women's rights needs to be spoken about heavily.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, there are protests happening over in Iran, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're
The
right.
overturn of Roe
Neighbors
versus Wade.
in America, yeah, they're having abortion issues right now. Like that's crazy. Why are we back in the goddamn 40s? Over that.
I mean,
It's-
we actually live in the 40s. It's just not that much of an issue for us because we don't have dedicated clinics and everything is done sort of under the radar. But
Yeah. Under
technically,
the radar is still very much
technically, it's not allowed here either. We
Yeah.
just don't have the amount of gates and we don't have that heavy opposition and we don't have the protests. But, definitely there's
If we tried to legalize it,
there's a
That
stigma.
would be a
And if we
definite.
do bring up the topic for discussion, then people who might otherwise say nothing would feel morally obligated to speak up, maybe because they're part of a church or maybe depending on just whatever fact they're part of, they would
There's
feel
not
like they need to take a particular stance.
mhm.
We know that should be happening in Grenada.
very much so. It happens daily
There's
at this
a different Yeah, we have a different sensitivity towards it. So we decide to just ignore the elephant in the room. Just let sleeping dogs lie.
I feel it's like that's
Well,
the only time we mind our business.
well, I think a lot of people actually, I'm not sure that many, I think that some people don't know that it actually happens. I think that some people have the luxury to be oblivious. I think many people do, right? Absolutely. But I do think that it could be easy for men not to know potentially if, I mean, not just men, but I just think that we take it as a given that we know that there's access. But I mean, Ayisha, we've had to have this conversation. People have contacted me about where can you? Is there anywhere in Grenada to get a safe abortion? And I think that if you interviewed, surveyed, and somebody did their capstone research at SGU in the public health department, and the question was around legalization of abortion, and the research showed that the majority of medical professionals in Grenada believe that abortion should be something that is accessible as part of healthcare. It just, not having the fact is we know that not having legal access to abortions does not stop abortions. It just makes them unsafe.
Exactly.
And it makes them inaccessible. So now we create a situation where some people have access, some people don't, and they're not safe. You really can get hurt or, just be put in a vulnerable position. So how can we think about this more broadly, But I think the piece that you said, Ayana, is really important to this, which is that certain topics have become identity markers, which is so deeply unfortunate. And we see it kind of rippling out of American politics where, abortion rights and LGBT rights have become identity markers around whether you're a conservative or a liberal, whether you're religious or not. And those are assumptions that people make about people's beliefs on those issues, but they have become those kinds of defining issues, which I'm not sure an issue should be a defining marker of an identity. I think that we should have more freedom to question and look at the situation and feel into our heart about something, and we still might land on different sides of it, but at least we're not building identities around these things.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Malaika.
I remember when the clinic in town burned down and the whole chatter was laughing at women. Now you can't throw the child. Now you have to keep it. And I was just in shock. I'm like, well, shouldn't you be a part of this conversation too? Especially the males who are laughing. Like, shouldn't you be, how do you know that this is not how you're a free single man right now, that you don't have the burden or responsibility of a child that your girlfriend or your former partner didn't take care of before? So to not involving the males who think they could just get away with it, who think that, coming inside of a woman is just, okay, she'll take care of it in the morning. The morning after pill. The morning after pill is available in Grenada. Sometimes
I would
it's expensive.
say that it's really good that they package it on the side. I noticed that they started doing that, putting it in individual baggies and just keeping it on the side. So even before you even say the word morning after plan B, they already have it at the register. Most pharmacies here. I have to say, I give them props for that. You don't have to go to the pharmacist and come back and tell 2-3 different people what you come for. They have it like right there by cash out. You just say, let me get a morning after. Right there. It's already in a black plastic bag.
I also sorry, go ahead, Ayisha.
When I told my friends in the States that I could get it, like it's available, they were all surprised because it's not like that in a lot of states in America where you can just go and buy it over the counter. So we're a little behind, but in a little bit, we're a little, step ahead.
I was telling Ro earlier in our group chat today that I feel like, one, I'm really happy that we are doing this episode today because I think from my side, from relatability perspective, like all the stuff that's happening in the US, me going through my own fertility journey and so forth, which I'll touch on a little bit later, but I feel like we're going to push some buttons with this episode, even with our listeners. I think, like when you brought up the conversation of, as we know, abortion is not legalized in Grenada, but we also, at least from my experience, I've seen some areas where Grenada is a, faith-based country where we'll still have people who will still be against it. We might consider somebody that we know very closely that's very proactive about women's rights, but because of their own religious beliefs, they've taken it to the point of like, well, I don't support abortion. So I'm just calling it out that I'm actually so excited about this because I love pushing buttons and seeing those conversations that will come up once this episode releases.
For me, like you could not support. That's your own business, but don't mind my body's business. If you don't want to support it, that's you, babes. Everybody's choice. I mean, do your thing, but your supported does not need to like damper something going on with my body. And I think it's just the case of minding your business. A lot of things. Mind your random business.
Because we don't know what's going on with anybody. The situation could be whatever it is.
You don't know if I can even support lifestyle, much less me and this child's.
And it's funny how they'll see it differently when it's them, huh? I mean, I think that's the case, especially, when you think about the context of the US and the decision makers. They're creating all of these barriers for women who are within particular economic and social classes, but their kids, if it happens within their family, they're quick to correct the situation because, for them, there are no gates at all,
Yeah.
There were actually stories coming out about that. I feel like Twitter is now my news station, but when people were telling stories, they're like, I work in an abortion clinic and I was told that I could not come anytime earlier than 8:00. I have to come in at 8, no second earlier. That's the time that I have to come into. So guess at some point they had to come in a little bit earlier. They were there early, and they realized it was fully open, but to a particular group of people in America. It was senators' kids, or people in a higher up position who could not say that I'm gonna have like Christians' kids, like just people that you should not see really in an abortion clinic. That's the time that they go in. They went in earlier.
Well, don't say should not see. Say people who
Should not.
people who don't want to be seen.
Who
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah, and I think part of these things too is that there can be so much shame attached to just pieces of our story, especially things that become stigmatized or kind of, again, those touch point issues. Then we are, there's the pressure to be ashamed of that story, and to feel like there's something wrong with that. And for me, I'm someone who's had 2 abortions. The first time I had sex, I had to have an abortion the first time, and that was wild for me as this, late teen who was like, okay, I'm doing this. And I was with someone who was a few years older. So actually, he should have made sure that on my first time having sex, I didn't get pregnant, because me and Noah going on, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, yo, I like you, you like me. Like, I thought that you're going to take care of me. Now I turn around and I felt the moment it happened, but I didn't know about plan B. I felt the moment, like afterwards, I realized what happened, and it wasn't an anxiety. It wasn't a feeling of like, oh my God, what if? It was like, I felt it happen. And if I knew about plan B, we wouldn't like even have to have this discussion, but I didn't. And it just so happened that I was traveling out of the States at just a few weeks later. So I was able to have access to Planned Parenthood in New York. But that's what we're saying, is that in these places where it's not legal, then it becomes an issue of, do you have access? Do you happen to have a ticket to somewhere where it's legal? Do you happen to have access to flying out to Miami? And that's what people do. Either they see doctors here or they fly their kids out, but not everybody has that option or even knows that that option exists. And I think to name that I have had an abortion is something that helps to break that stigma, so that people don't feel like it's this big confession. Anybody in my life who knows me will probably know this information already, because it is something that I think it is important to share. And then also, as somebody who works in birth work, and as someone who has now made a child, I think anybody who's made a child knows that you should have the right to choose whether to make a child or not. Anybody who has a child, especially if you have birthed that, there's no way that deep down in your heart you don't realize that you are also a human being. You are not just a reproductive device. And if this piece of you, because it is forming in you, this piece of you, for me, this is what I firmly believe. I mean, I have, about when abortion should end, but especially in the time where this life cannot sustain outside of me, I have every say about whether I choose to continue this journey, because it is an investment. It is an investment of my body. It is an investment of my time, my money, my energy, my commitment to myself, to this child, and to society. I'm making a commitment to society to do my best to bring a balanced human being up in this world, to support a healthy home so that other people do not have to deal with the my impact, right? Those are huge commitments. Don't we want people making those mindfully? I think we do a disservice to women and to couples. It's not women alone who get abortions. We do a disservice if we don't trust them to really consider this hard decision, that it's often a hard decision, and I think we can trust people to make a smart choice for themselves. So that's my high horse around that. But just
think about pregnancy even more than I would have usually. Like, you are bringing someone into this world that has to be a good human in society, and you're kind of in charge of helping that person grow into a mature human. That's
And as a teacher, like, I see like mature people, and I don't mean like older people, but mature people struggle in their own ability to make things happen. And you know that there are people who the situation was less than ideal because no situation, it's never going to be the right time. Like they're never really ready, right? But you see people and you know that it's going to be a struggle. And then to demand that they just have to see it through because they should have known better or that's what they did and that's the repercussion of it all. It's very difficult for me to like grasp, especially being a teacher and you see how people struggle, people who have it together, you know, it's a balance. You have to work, but then you have a child. And as the child gets older, there's that time where they need you there. And if you're like 13 or 16, when they need you there, you are in the middle of coming of age for yourself.
Yeah.
And then there's that balance. And I've worked with like teenagers before as well. So you see the need for that connection with parent, but also parent now trying to live their own life. And it's so difficult to watch people like struggle with it and then know that somebody could tell me or anyone, nah, you just have to work with it. Not everybody has the support. And really and truly, like Malaika said, you have to trust that people will make the best decisions. Not just because I didn't want this to happen, so I'm just going to do it. It's because you're thinking about what is best for yourself, but also for the life that you're bringing into the world.
Yeah.
You know, so
The
I
running
think it's
theme.
hard.
Sorry, Jizzy. I thought. Go ahead.
I'm done.
Now, I was gonna say the running theme here, at least from the States, and like the part that's really infuriating is like, yes, there's that side of like, you know, you had sex, got pregnant, weren't expecting it. There's a large proportion, especially for the disenfranchised communities, minorities, especially in the States where they're victims of sexual assault, right? A lot of those the sexual assault moments are actually from direct family members. Um, and so the running theme that was happening when Roe versus Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court 6-3 ruling, there's infuriation, but I saw more times than I really wanted to see that people saying, well, no, well, now it's just left up to the states. And therefore, it's not that abortion's completely gone away. It's just left up to the states. And if you don't like it, you can move. There's a lot of things wrong with that. One, the Supreme Court was built by the people, was supposed to be built by the people for the people, which means that if I don't have the protection I need in a specific state, I could take it all the way to the Supreme Court. But what does that mean? That means that I have the money, I need to have the money to do so. So with that conversation of, well, you could go and get it done in another state. A good example, a rape victim in, I forgot if it's in Ohio, Texas, I might be misquoting that part here, was denied to get an abortion. Mm-hmm. Now tell me, if we think about that aspect, or like, one, if we're trying to say that we're trying to be better as a society, how does enforcing a woman, a 10-year-old to deliver a baby make her better for society? Right?
Yeah.
Or how does even it's saying that like if you wanted to get one, you could just go to California. People don't know actually how much that costs. Yeah. I mean, I could go. I mean, I know that financially I'm stable, but it took me a while to get here, right? And I'm almost 40. That expectation of people, especially because these kind of things do work against the minority community. Minority communities are the ones that are going to be going to be vulnerable in these kind of decisions. It's a topic we are going to bring up. I know when we think about women's rights, of is it white rights or is it truly inclusive? And again, I know we have our own opinions about that, but it's really the basis of like, even at a point of like, how do we, in my opinion, it's almost like an eradication of specific minority groups, because we want to make sure that if they take this action, they're going to go to jail. And as you all know, jail in the States is a for-profit organization. All prisons are a for-profit organization, which means that they get money to put people in prison for the littlest things. Another scandal came out about that. So it's just, that's a frustrating thing of like people saying like, well, it's not really a big deal. You can just go to a state, or luckily for me in my state of California, you know, I may not have to worry about it right now, right? But it should not be that theme of like, yes, it's based on the state, let them do, because that itself does so much damage of like that specific mentality of coming back to that idea of like, not necessarily do you believe in abortion or not, but really actually thinking about, do you think it's okay for a law to police your body, whether you believe in abortion or not? You need to understand, you need to kind of separate the two. Like, yes, faith based by faith, maybe I don't believe in abortion, someone might say that, but as a woman or as a human being, I also don't believe there should be laws to, you know, police their own bodies, that people have their own, should be able to make their own decisions.
Yeah, and let them deal with the consequences. If you think that that's something that they're going to have to pay penance for, it's okay to let someone, especially, you know, when you're that boundary, like, it's okay, let someone handle that. Also, allow everyone their space to kind of have their own morality and their faith, you know, and make decisions, yeah, for their body that belong to them. The piece of what's coming to mind, which is slightly off topic, but not really. I was listening to this conversation with this friar, Robert Rohr or something like that. He's this Christian friar, and he talks about, you know, when we say that when Jesus is quoted in the Bible, oftentimes he started with the word repent. And what he was talking about was the original Greek is actually, it means to, it's not interpreted as repent. The original Greek is interpreted as change your mind, like change. And that was such an interesting like comparison of the two, the energy of those two different words. And not to say everyone must change their views, but it's just more, can we create the space for people to make decisions? Can we allow ourselves to trust that people are going to evolve and change and decide what's best for them and their family? You know, and also I want to also say the medical piece of this is that many miscarriages need to end in an abortion. You know, many women are at risk because if they're going, again, as a birth worker, I have clients who miscarry, and that can involve needing to go to the hospital to get that process completed in order for them not to become sick or septic. And what you have is that people are in hospitals now in some of these more conservative states where doctors are scared to intervene before, you know, certain points, like before there is no heartbeat of the fetus, when we know that the fetus is in distress, we know that the mother is at risk. You're waiting until that point and putting the mother further at risk. So that's the other challenge with these kind of overarching laws, is that it doesn't also trust our doctors to make the wisest medical decisions for our bodies.
And support, there's no support. A lot of times, you know, people do want to have children and there's no daycare, there's no health care, it costs thousands of dollars to have a child in the hospital. And I believe in home birth. Thank you, Malaika, you're awesome. But still, it's gonna cost money. It costs money to raise a child and there is no support. So you have, these parents don't get time off. These parents, daycare costs a lot. Schooling costs a lot. So I think you have to say, if you're not gonna, well, that shouldn't even be a conversation, but outside support will help in preventing a lot of abortions.
Yeah. Oh, and Bahar, do you know that the argument that you made about the eradication of certain populations, I recently bumped up somebody who used that same argument as a pro-life argument, and they were saying that it's Black and brown communities that, you know, are targeted for abortion. So that's also one way that perspective is also interpreted, is that it's Black and brown communities where abortions are happening, and it's a way of limiting the population in that way, which I don't know if that's true or not in terms of statistics around abortion, to be honest. What I do know is that most women who have abortions already have one child, at least. Yeah.
I think if we like, if we think
clinics,
about,
that's where they say clinics are in the Black and brown community, but that's also where the struggle is, in the Black and brown community. And when you think of, there are clinics in the white community too. They are in the parts of the community where there's poorer, there's going to be abortion clinics. It's just easy access because rich people can go to their regular doctor. They don't need a clinic.
Yeah.
Or they go to exclusive. I didn't even know. All I knew was about Planned Parenthood. And later, one of my friends was like, oh, yeah, I had an abortion too. It was like, you know, $500. It was at this clinic in Manhattan. And I was like, what? I did not even realize that there are these also high end, of course, not just clinics. Like, you have your appointment.
Yeah. I think like
This point, sorry,
go ahead, Rajizi.
this point that I can't remember who the celebrity is, and I don't want anybody to come for me because I'm just going based on what I learned back in the day. So I'm not even calling the person who I think it is me. But there is a celebrity who knows that their mom was on the track to abort them.
Mm.
And the fact that she made the decision not to, and he I think was able to live his life and stuff like that. It's something that is an experience that has him, as far as I read back when I read it or when I listened to it, is more of a pro-life person now because of that, because his life could have not been there at all. And something like that, I totally understand based on, the experience and knowing that, hey, I couldn't be here doing all of these things and making all of these decisions based on what decision that my mom would have made. And I respect that, but I've never heard them say, I'm against it, it's wrong, blah, blah, blah. I'm hoping that because of the experience, he can encourage people to make the right choice. But, the pro life part of just knowing that you may not have been here at all, knowing, not even figuring, like maybe my mom wanted to, knowing that she was on track and then decided not to. It was like a mind opening thing because I grew up Catholic. I still am like in my own prayer and stuff like that. And we learn abortion is a hell no from get go. And then, I mean, for me, as I live life and I experience different things, I realize for myself that it's not a black or white situation. There really are things that you have to take into consideration. And so for me, it's like I said, do what you gotta do for you.
Yeah. I think for
Yeah, in that argument, I've had people say, "Well, what if your mom aborted you?" Oh well, I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be talking. Next.
I don't think you need to know that.
I have some odd views around this, and I don't want to tick off any of our listeners that are very religious, but
I say, why not?
energy cannot be created or destroyed. If you didn't come in this way, you would have come in another way. And I thoroughly believe that energy is constantly being recycled around us. And maybe you weren't this baby, you would be the next. You can't miss something that never was. I'm sorry. It sounds very insensitive, but I just, yeah, that's it.
Listen, it's so funny you said that because what I was thinking when Giselle, you were sharing that person's story, and God bless them, and I'm so happy they have a great life. But as there's only so much you can put yourself in somebody's shoes. But as I thought about it, the feeling that came up was like, I have so much faith in this world, in the universe. Like if the person who was carrying me chose not to see it through, like it just feels like a level of faith that it's okay. Like it is okay. It is okay. And we can, as human beings, there we die at any point in our life cycle, including in the womb, for all kinds of reasons. And if one of those reasons is that the carrier, the being that is going to be, holding and growing and nurturing me is not ready, I'm okay. I'm okay with
There's always a
that.
greater plan. There's always a greater plan at play.
Yeah.
We just have to trust that nothing, if it wasn't is, it wouldn't be. Something like there's a Caribbean saying, I think it's what is will is. That's it. What is to is will is. So that's it.
I think as someone who eventually would be, as myself, who would be starting her fertility journey towards IVF, that idea of like abortion is like also a scenario where I've heard statements run around of like, one is women, of course, that can naturally get pregnant, and then there's those that need assistance. And the fear around that's arisen, I think personally for me, is that as I start that journey and for those of our listeners who may not know what IVF is, it's a process where at one point there's going to be an extraction of an egg, husband's sperm, and then the embryo is created outside and then put back into you. A lot of those times is that the embryos defective is not the right term, but the embryos will form, but may not be able to last the life cycle, right? So essentially from up until full term. And what's happening here is then the patient is given the option to essentially be, the eggs and the embryos to be disposed of, which is now becoming a further topic in the laws here in the States of like, okay, so at what point do we identify that as that being an abortion where technically medically it is, even if the embryo is not, inside you yet? And I think my fear is that I'm, as I said, luckily I am in California, but like my fear is that if we don't get this back up to a federal level or anything that would have minimal impact to me, where I would fear that if something doesn't go right, I would not be able to take the action that I need to take. And that is a very big fear for me. And I think it's become a very big fear in the people that have to go through fertility journeys where they need science, to kind of intervene in that moment. But like to know that you might have
like,
doctors
wait,
that
hold on. So you're saying that is your fear that if there is a embryo that is showing that it wouldn't really be viable or unlikely to be viable, that it would be your responsibility to carry it because it can't, like, because
depending on
not carry.
They might take away her.
No, that's what I want to know. If it's that, not carry it, because I'm like, could you imagine?
No. So not carry it. So two sides. One that one's after the embryo, and then after you have the embryo inserted, it's already, and at some point later you find that it's actually not going to go through full term, that piece. But the other piece is like when the embryos are not viable, that the idea, and then I said those are the conversations that are coming up. And like one of my good friends is a fertility doctor, where some of the doctors have fear of like, okay, well, we know the patient knows the embryo is not viable, therefore we're not moving forward with the procedure, but we now need to dispose of this embryo. What does that look like? And they're just so afraid of like, at what point does that conversation of abortion start where it says you can't be doing that? Or do you get what I mean? It's like those are the fears that are coming up with like some of my doctor friends of like, okay, it's not viable, we can't go forward with this procedure, we absolutely need to dispose, right? Or just, unfortunately, I hate the term's kind of weird, but obviously dispose of the embryo. But what does that mean? Is that
even inside the woman's body, right?
Exactly. But then they're considering that like, even though it's not viable, it's still technically would probably consider like a form of whoever, depending on how you decide to interpret it, a form of life.
I didn't hear what you said, Ru.
I was like, do they not even want us to have a period now? Like, is this?
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like, those are like the fears, and I think valid fears that are coming up.
Can you imagine if they tell us we can't take birth control?
That's coming.
Men need to be on birth control.
And it's more than like one or two when they implant multiple eggs and maybe two hatch, and they have to remove one. Is that an abortion? That's
exactly.
Because with IVF,
so many.
You have the risk of multiple pregnancies, so you have higher chances of twins, quadruplets, triplets. Even the higher numbers usually come from IVF because it's so costly to do the procedure. They recommend you putting in several to increase your chances. And sometimes one of the risks is that all go through, and then you end up with 8 babies inside you. Could you imagine 8? And then someone says you have to keep them all. 8 college tuition, 8 lunch kit to pack in the morning, 8 pampers to change, 8 people, 8
trigger warning,
but 8 things sucking on your tits. Yo, could you imagine 8 screams at 3:00 in the morning?
It's a lot.
We have to keep you. We are going to the hills and learn how to fork the land. That's
girl.
Yo, literally before I came up here, my parents were teasing me because I was like, oh gosh, and they were like, imagine if you had twins when you were younger, you wanted twins so bad. I was like, yo, please, Because I also have a friend who has triplets and she's like, my mom was like twins of my son. And I know someone who has triplets of boys that look like him. And I'm just like, but at the same time, I understand the journey and people making that. Some people make the option. You see people with quintuplets and things like that. But the choice, it's about choice. And the language, my granddad was like one of my best friends, and he was one of the first people I told. And the way that he described it to me, and I was still really early, he was like, listen, Malaika, this is a menstrual extraction. It's literally your uterine wall, a bunch of cells. Like, it's a menstrual extraction. Like, he comes from a science background. And I thought that was so powerful for me because it didn't become this moral heartache. I was making a choice at a time that was really pivotal in my life and would have impacted so many things about, sure, I could have made it work, but I made the decision for me, and to have that support and to have somebody also just break it down in those kinds of biological terms was helpful for me, so that languaging, and then the language in the law becomes scary because it's like, okay, what is considered an abortion? What is allowed? Mm-hmm.
I've had abortions with an S, and I have had no support, as in my mom is totally against it, and the people I was around were like, it was so weird because I had these male friends who were like, oh my God, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And I'm like, none of y'all are going to be here to help me. What are you talking about? But the manipulation of those around you when you if you decide to share the fact that you're one, pregnant, and two, about to have an abortion, it can, if you're not a strong person, you're ending up with I would say an unwanted child. And then people are like, oh, what about adoption? What about adoption? There are many, many homes filled with children who are unwanted, and adoption is not going to take care of all of them. I've heard many people say, I would never adopt a child because I don't know where they came from. Even somebody was like, oh, I didn't even know Grenada had homes because the family's supposed to take care of the child. That doesn't happen anymore. So instead of filling up these homes, let's just take care of it before it starts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I actually watched Meet the Robinsons last night on Disney. Very quick Disney animation segue. He grew up in an orphanage, and the one thing that he wanted to do was know why, and he went when he was growing up, he was like telling the orphanage lady, my mother didn't even want me, nobody wants me, because he's also at that age where it's weird for people to adopt in the first place. And he's like, nobody wants me. And she had to sit him down, and she's like, what if she didn't have a choice? What if she wanted to, but she couldn't? And all of that. The things that we were talking about adoption and stuff like that. I was watching Meet the Robinsons. It's really cute. You should watch it.
Adds to watch list.
Add to the Disney Plus watch list.
Yes, sir. Shameless plug that you didn't ask for. Meet the Robinsons on Disney.
Should we get to the questions?
Yeah, I
Yes,
love
sir.
questions. So our first question was, do you think the Me Too movement has created a shift in dynamics against men that is now centered on an act first, ask questions later?
Nope.
Ayisha was like, nah.
So
I don't think so.
Let me just kind of go through a couple of the responses that we got. So this is coming from a man. He says, people have always found and abused loopholes, and this is no different because they aren't attacking men on a whole. It's typically rich men. So I don't, it's created a shift against men. That's coming from a man. Another person said, yes, men now have a target on their backs. As a mother of a son, I'm scared for him. I believe she continues. She says, as a mother of a son, I'm scared for him. A woman's word is taken without proof now. So many can and do like just to hurt a man for whatever reason. he can get into trouble for literally nothing. Or a woman can make moves on him but claim rape by the end of the day with no proof. I feel that if someone is accused, there has to be proof, not he say, she say. You shouldn't be allowed to wait 20 years to make the claims either. Say it now or keep it moving. Men are targets now. Same with domestic abuse. You think men aren't out here getting their asses beat? Yes, but they have to take it and say nothing. They can't defend themselves because if they hit back, they're the ones getting arrested. It's a hard time to be a male. I'm a woman and feel for the men. I'm not even looking up for it. I know what y'all.
Nah, well, I mean, I get that she's a mother.
Yeah.
And she's legit scared for her son even advancing anybody and then being blamed for something that he did not do. I get that part. I do. I get it.
It's definitely, I think, a concern and scare for women who are bringing up sons.
And it sounds like she's had experiences or knows people who have had experiences. It just sounds like it to me.
Yeah.
That she knows people who've had experiences that they came out on the bad side of when they were innocent. And so
towards this. Let's see.
Malaika, you're on mute.
You're muted, Liz.
I have a grown son, and I hope that he has been raised, because he hasn't only been raised by me, he's been also raised by other strong women in my family, that he has been raised to not be in a situation where a woman would have to accuse him of doing something untowards. I hope that he has been raised, and even I would like to say we have a very open conversation. I mean, an open communication where he can talk to me, I can talk to him. I hope I can say that if he can, we can discuss things like that. So if he's feeling in a situation where some woman or, I just hope that he would not put himself in a situation like that. This I'm afraid for men. I'm afraid for why? I feel like there's nothing out there to be afraid of if you're doing the right thing. When I looked at the statistics, and 6% of rapes rape accusations are unfounded. 6%. And think of how many rapes are not, or sexual abuse, sexual violence are not talked about. But of those that are reported, 6% are not true. That is a lot.
Yeah. I think this is one of those topics that isn't black or white. There's definitely some gray area because we have to be honest. Some man wicked, but also some gal wicked too. And you know, if we think back to the Jesse Smollett issue, where he basically orchestrated his whole attack allegedly. You know, for example, there are ways that people use abuse for clout and for social media following, for pity, or just out of maliciousness. But then also there are some wicked people that take advantage of men and women. I'm sorry. Our listeners, if you're not looking at us on YouTube,
Rohan's iPad just works against her.
Rohan has a stalker camera that follows her, and it just zoomed all the way out, showing us how beautiful, tropical. I vacationed in Hawaii pants.
No, that was the camel.
Yeah, that was an orange t-shirt.
Oh, that's what that is. I thought it was your pants.
But it's just how it didn't need to. It did not.
It really didn't.
It was creepy.
Yeah, bro, could it have been that you leaned back and the iPad's like, yo, I'm gonna lean back too? Like, what? That's what happened. That's what it did.
I've been trying to adjust so my whole top body's up, and it just do what it wants.
I'm glad that you're wearing something underneath there, girl, because it would have just show everything.
Because it really wasn't gonna hands, eh? And I was like, let me not with this camera.
Not with that camera, yo, for real.
What?
Next IG question.
Oh,
I think
Well,
Malaika wanted to
before
say
we
something.
Oh,
move,
sorry.
Anna was
yeah.
also putting up
You
a-
know,
Oh yeah, Ayana,
I'm
you
done.
were.
It was just to say that, you know, it's a gray, it's an issue that has a lot of gray areas, because the Me Too movement, I think, was well intentioned at first, and then at a certain point it just became one of those trending topics about outing people in high positions, or outing people. You would have never thought this person, but here's my story. You know, it just became this thing at a certain point, not to discredit anyone who was honestly trying to expose a predator, because that is a reality as well. But we always have to leave room for the bad mind people. And the truth, the truth of the matter is, there are lots of haters in society right now. There are lots of people that would do anything just to hear their name mentioned outside of their four walls at home. Like, people are willing to do anything on the internet, but also there's some nasty people out there. So it's just one of those things.
Yeah, it's true. Look at how cute Giselle's picture is. Jeez.
This was
Sorry, I got so distracted.
Thank you,
Okay,
Malaika.
hold on. Okay, I do have something to say. I think oh Lord, I was like, focus, you can do it. But I think there's a
Yeah.
couple of things going on. For me, when I think about this, I would hope that I also am raising a son. And I remember when we had him, because we didn't know, we just said, let's see what happens when he pops out, which was so exciting as well. But you know, I definitely think there was this, we wanted to rise to the challenge, because I think there is a challenge there. It's strange to me. There's this way that we privilege masculinity still. I have a friend who works in ultrasound, and she says people will bawl when they find out they're having a girl. Like, some people, not everybody, of course, but I was shocked that there is still this idea that I want a boy. And so it's so interesting, because I think that patriarchy has backfired for men, where them being kind of positioned on the pinnacle has meant that they haven't had to evolve often. There's been a lot laid out for them. There's still, male privilege in certain ways. And what that means is that now, when I look at the school systems, for example, there's so many women who are going on to tertiary and professional degrees, especially in the Caribbean. If you look at the professional schools and college, you will see definitely more women. And I feel like women, we still feel like we have to push and just deal with these systems that don't really work and make it work and get credentialed. And there's a way that I think that men are kind of struggling. And so I'm not going to discount that. And I also feel that in the cancel culture of the Me Too movement, for me, isn't enough. It's a band-aid, and we villainize these individuals, and we are not addressing the system that raised them, because we all have men in our lives on some level or another, whether it's an uncle, a dad, a friend, who says certain things that you're like, wow, you really have been conditioned to, like, just off the cuff say that I am going to tell you why I feel it's problematic. There are people we all love who are conditioned within this society, and instead of actually addressing the work cultures, the environments that have facilitated these kinds of behaviors, there's a satisfaction in just canceling. And I think that cancel culture does a disservice to the complexity of dealing with issues as human beings. If we just exile a person, how are we addressing the issue? I'm not saying that people don't need to be responsible for their actions, but I do think that it's a band-aid to me, and we have to really start thinking about what are the cultures that allow that to happen. Giselle?
Absolutely.
I just want to say thank you for thinking I was cute. Anyway, Ro, if you don't mind, I want to read another answer that came in. And the reason I want to read it, because it's when I actually read it just now, I was like, oh, I like this answer. So this person said, I think that because of the high profile cases sensationalized by the media, it lends well to what a lot of people are believing. that now there's a total shift in the other extreme where a man is immediately accused and can be easily convicted. But to that person, that occurs less than genuine confession, right? She also have opinions on men that react more fragile to these stories, but that's a different thing. So yes, I can see that some people can use the wave of the movement for personal gain, clout, etc. But it is far less than the actual true confessions that the woman has already made.
It's all about of like, oh my God, this man did that. Like, we have to just go and cancel him. And there's not a cushion for the victim, or
And are they actually taking accountability for what they did, or are they just doing it because everybody is canceling them out now? Like, is it a true, I did this, I'm taking accountability, or is it a please don't cancel me, bring me back on, I want to be relevant again kind of thing? And I've never thought of it like that, so that's why I wanted to read that, because it was kind of thought provoking for me in that moment.
Well, and I'll also say the piece for me that gives me solace also raising a boy is that I know statistically it is much less likely for a rape accusation to be a lie than be the truth, like by far, right? Because we know as women, we're also or as people who declare rape, because men, the risk of just all the things that are said about you if you come forward as a rape victim, and for women as well, there is a lot of backlash on us when we say that we've been raped or sexually assaulted. So it's a risk that we take. So knowing that statistically it's much less false accusations than accusations, much less people coming forward. But the other thing is, I also want to be raising, and this is my hope, my wish, raising a person, whether it's a young man or a young woman, who would be able to, even if they step over somebody's boundaries, that they are healthy and balanced enough to be somebody who people feel like they can address that with and say, hey, right? That we can, we're not gonna, we are going to have missteps. And so the hope for me is raising a young man who knows that, who understands consent. What is consent? We don't even talk about what consent is, right? Who understands it to the best of his knowledge, and who then can also receive somebody telling him, hey, this made me feel uncomfortable, and that person feels safe talking to him, even if that, and I'm not saying who the hell knows what he's going to be like when he grows up, but as a parent, that's where my focus is. I can't control the future, but I can try to give you the most whole supportive past that makes you a safe space for people to tell you, because I want people to tell me too when I fuck up, when I make you feel uncomfortable, if something was problematic, as even if it's hard and sometimes I want to be defensive, I know that that's going to happen, and I want to be able to be told those things. And that's the difference too. I think there's a lot of space for women to, and people to tell others if a boundary has been traversed, and many of us have probably had that happen where we've been like, you know, and it's been received in varying ways, but to be able to say that, you know.
I'm glad you mentioned consent, Malaika, because one of the pods that I was listening to recently, they were interviewing what's the politically correct term? A cis male, a straight man, male identifying. I'm trying to be as PC as possible. But anyway, the dude was saying that when he approaches the consent conversation, he only responds to an enthusiastic yes. That is what he responds to. There's no the tug of war, the play around it, the let me try and coax you. He's like, you know, if that comes in later in some sort of role play fashion, then fine. But what gets him going is an enthusiastic yes. He does not want anyone who seems unsure. He said if there is any moment of doubt, it's a no. It has to be an enthusiastic yes, and that is his go for consent. And I think that if we all look at sex and our sexual interactions in that way, men and women, because, you know, to be fair, we see a lot of the times we see men as the aggressors and the predators, but we know that there are times when we women can back men into a corner, demean them, insult them in a way that they feel that they need to have sex with us to prove that they're men, or that they're this, or that they're that they have this sexual prowess, or whatever the case is. And it is a form of manipulation and coercion as well that is spoken about less, but it does take away their right to say no sometimes, because we put them in this box, and we might not use physical restraint, but we might use some sort of emotional manipulation. So this guy was saying that for him it's an enthusiastic yes, and I really like that.
I talked to my girls about that, and that conversation about what yes and enthusiastic yes and what no, and not a play no. When it's consent, it's consent. Also, that males can say no, and you cannot manipulate them into, because it's the same. It's rape. It's to try and push it on them, and honestly, I had to learn that, not the hard way, but I had to learn that myself, that you cannot pressure somebody into having sex. If they say no, or they're not willing, no matter what you say or what you do, you have to allow them that grace, because they will allow it for you too. So it's something that women have to learn and get in their heads, that no is no for men and for women. If you want him to respect you with the no, then you have to respect him with the no also. Consent is very, very important. And I think consent is something that has to be taught, and not just for sex, for every single thing, for, eating out, for wearing this, for eating that, for at the dinner table when they give you a lot of food and you don't want all that food, and you say, and it sits there, but you take it anyway, but you have to be able to say, no, I don't want that. And parents have to allow their children to say no and accept their no, and not try and pressure them. Same thing. Unless it's like, eat your vegetables. No, eat your fucking vegetables.
Like I'm a fan of the enthusiastic yes. Like the excitement of both of us. Like, oh my God, like we're about to do this. I remember like being at a friend's house, and there's this guy that like me and him had sex before, and we had like a little situationship, and he told me to come upstairs, but he went and slept, right? And my friends were like, just wake him up with head. And I'm like, that's not a thing for me. I'm like, no, I'm like, he's drunk and asleep. Why would I go do that? Like, even if we have sex before, he doesn't probably want to have sex right now. That's why he's sleeping. I'm like, I'm thinking of like, oh, wake the person up with head. Like, that's so hot. And I'm like, no, there's no consent.
Consent can change at any time.
At any point.
At any time, whether
well, I mean,
it's a husband relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend relationship, I think no means no at any point. Even if I said yes before.
Even if you're married, like it was uncomfortable for my ex. He was like, why would I? Like, it just was uncomfortable for him to try to start having sex with me when I was like dead asleep. Like, it just was, and I understood that, because I never wanted to do it either. But even people who you have a rolling consent, like what, there can be just that understanding of, yeah, this is the line. Some people are like, wake me up with sex. Like, it's explicit. You're into it. I'll say no if I don't want to, right? But that space to make the decision about what you want to do for your body. And I think consent, that enthusiastic yes, and also knowing that consent can be withdrawn at any time. I think that's a big one, because there's also, sex and sensuality is it's also a biological thing that's happening. This is why a lot of people feel shame around their sexual assault or rape, is that sometimes they orgasm, sometimes they get wet, sometimes it feels good, and it feels good on a physical level, and you can't really reconcile that with not wanting to do it. That's some of the shame around sexual assault. But being able to recognize that even when something is feeling good initially, like, so in the context of maybe there is a wanted touch, wanted kissing, etc., but at any point in that where it's no longer where you want it to go, it's okay to say no. It's okay. And I feel like I don't know about Y'all, but when I was younger, I feel like this idea of like blue balls is this mythical thing where like men's genitals will explode if you don't do something about it. It's like, fucking explode then. You know? Like, I'm so sorry, but I think I have to say that for baby Leica, who the first time she gave head was because somebody who she was making out with, who genuinely she liked, was like, you know what? Because you don't want to have sex now, because I hadn't even had sex yet. Now you have to suck my salty ass dick
What?
because of blue balls. So I have to say that for baby Leica, who had that experience. And there are studies that show that in the Caribbean, and I'm sure many places in the world, young girls, their first sexual experience, whether like it's oral sex or whatever, is coerced. Whether it's rape or someone you like to kind of pressure you, I feel like recognizing that consent can be withdrawn at any point, and that blue balls is a fucking myth. Or maybe it's real, but explode. I'm sorry, it's not my responsibility what happens to your body because I'm hot shit.
I love that.
I like that.
So we have on share. Oh, sorry, Aisha, go ahead.
No, I think my speaker got a little loud. Sorry.
I'm just gonna share this last response we had. The person responded with, I believe it separated women and men more and made it more difficult to communicate and exchange genuine relationships. I mean, I like if you do the right goddamn thing, then we don't got no goddamn problem.
Yeah.
This is so black and white to me.
And survey the women in your life. Most of us have experienced some level of sexual assault. Like, it is just very common. So I'm not, again, people lie, but also do a small casual survey in a loving, safe way, and you will realize that women in all generations of your life have been on the end of unwanted sexual touch or advances or whatever.
Like I have a lot of male friends that I interact with very often, and they're like, oh, like I don't think I actually know anyone who's been sexually assaulted. I'm like, you know someone, you call them your best friend. I'm right here. I'm like, I necessarily want to call you as soon as it happens, but it's something that has happened to me, and I don't mind sharing it with you so that you understand where consent and this issue that I'm having just came into play, and I didn't know what to do other than to hold on to this man's penis, you know, because for me it was my life or not, you know, and that's what it was, and I had to share that with them, and I was like, I don't mind sharing with y'all, and share it with your friends, because you don't understand that you put women in positions sometimes that they don't want to be in anymore, and they don't want to a certain way. You know, like I'm good with kissing, but I'm not okay with what else has happened there. You know,
Do they care?
That's why, like,
Do they care? Do they care?
Well, we hope to God they do, but they act like they don't, because they're like, you're already here in my room, so what are you here for?
Yeah. That's why I feel like I think that statement that our listener who was fearing for her son, which I understand, when she was saying like there should be like a cap to, like, you should have said it then and now, and it's like it's not easy for a victim of any style of sexual assault, whether it involved penetration or not, to be like, oh great, I'm gonna come. There's a lot of things that need to get unpacked there. Like, they're dealing with their own shame. You know, what kind of background do they come from? Do they have a resource to actually go to somebody safely and say, hey, this happened to me? Do they have the ability to feel safe enough that if I say this person is not close enough to me, the person that I'm accusing is not close enough to me where he or she can harm me again? So like, that is a part where it's like, I think people may not understand that it's not always about timing. It's not always like, yeah, well, you should have said it before, and why are you saying it now? To Jans's point, there are definitely bad mind people out there, but like, trying to say that someone needs to say it, you know, right away, that's a very gray area to just to call out.
And the power dynamic of a male who is And we're going to talk about Nia Long and that situation, or any power dynamic where a man with power is sleeping with a woman who is under him, who does not have power. Not even just sleeping with him, but the conversations, and where you have to laugh and he, and you have to accept it and take it. And yeah, that's what it is. The age difference. There's a lot of things that come to play where say it right there does not is not relevant at that time.
Absolutely. I think we saw that with the Me Too movement, where a lot of women felt empowered to say something maybe 10 to 20 years later because this was the only time they felt like they could, you know? And it was just such a shock that people actually were talking about it. And they were like, this is my time to chime in. If I don't, I'm living with this for the rest of my life. So I think we have to give grace to the people who come 20 years later and say, I was sexually assaulted by this person, you know, or was abused or raped by this person. You have to give them grace. You can't. I feel a level of comfort saying the things that I say when I remember that I was coerced into having sex, that I was assaulted um, one or two times. Like I feel comfortable because I know I have the backing of my community, and I feel safe when I share that, you know. But I definitely didn't feel safe at the time when it was happening, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Have to give grace and this time and space for people to come forward and speak their truth. That's their truth.
Well, even on a level of like teenagers and the things that happen to us, like it terrifies me that even in a household that I mean, maybe this is evidence that it wasn't always as safe to say things in a non-judgmental way than I imagined. But for the most part, my environment was open, non-judgmental, like open around talking about sex, um, and there are things that happened to me that I did not tell my parents and that were not my fault, and I should have had no shame, and I should have walked into my house because they also I never it's not really like I snuck out. Like they were like, okay, you're outside, you have your little old school phone. If you can't get a safe ride, I could have always called my parents. If I couldn't get a safe ride, always call my parents. And yet somehow there are things that happen to me that I didn't tell them. That shit fucking terrifies me now that I'm a parent. I'm like, okay, like, what can we do here to make sure? And of course, you can't make sure. What I think one thing that we can do is make sure that our children have multiple safe adults in their lives that they feel comfortable talking to, because there are going to be things that they don't want to talk to you about. And so I think it's important for us to nurture healthy adult relationships, people in our life who also agree to the way that you want to raise your child. And sometimes that's hard with grandparents or in-laws or whatever who might have varying cultural or whatever beliefs than you. But I think really dedicating ourselves to saying, this is how we're trying to talk to our child about their body. This is what we are trying to encourage them with the way that they share and speak, secrets. Like, let's just talk a little bit, since crossing over here into, if we're talking about consent, then how do we talk about keeping our children and our young people and ourselves safe? One simple thing that we've agreed to as co-parents is not ever asking our son to keep secrets. Really doing our best to not ask him to keep secrets from the other person, because one principle that we have is that there are no secrets from your parents. Right? And this is something that gets talked about in like consent trainings for parents. It's like help them understand the difference between a surprise. Like a surprise is you and Papa organized to get me a gift, and you're like tucking it away until my birthday, and eventually it's going to be revealed and it feels good. A secret is something that can feel negative. And this book I have also talks about secrets, like secret handshakes and things that give you like an overall good feeling. And it's something that you could tell mom and dad, but it's just interesting to think about the language that we raise our kids with will help them to be able to articulate things to us or not. We're very clear about his body. Like, these are body parts. You're the ones you have. These are the ones I have. It's okay. Like, it's okay for you to touch your body. you could touch your body, like you could touch your body by yourself, you know, but it's not okay for anybody to ask you to touch their body at this point in your life. And it's not okay for anybody to show you, expose their body to you. And, you know, that you're allowed to say no. I mean, one of the things that we started early is just he could say goodbye or hello however he wants, wave, bounce, high five. The thing is, what's great about this is that usually he'll give you all, right? But he has the option to be like, I'm good. And like everybody has to be okay with it. And sometimes they're not, but those are the small ways that we help our little people learn how to have autonomy. Because a lot of times we feel like other people have a right to our body. If we end up in a certain situation, all of a sudden it's like you're allowed because I've been told I have to be nice. I have to give you access. So yeah, the parenting piece is a huge part of this from young. How do we set that foundation around consent and also me understanding consent in my own body, you know?
I think it's important.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I think it's important for us to like even teach people around us to do the same. I have a lot of smallie little baby people around me. And I want to hug them up. And I'm like, can I give you a hug? I'm like, can I give you besos? Can I give you a kiss? And I always kiss a cheek. And I'm like, I'll tickle you, but I tell you what because I want to like help nurture that part of it where it's like, you have to ask or you're saying what's happening here, you know, just so
you're responsive to the no, even if you forget to ask. Like with tickling can be such a suffocating feeling that you think because they're having this laughing reaction. And I think like tickling is something where you just have to really, because Samori loves being tickled, and I'm like, yo, but I see how this can get so insane if somebody's not paying attention. It's like you can't breathe, but your body's making you laugh. Yeah.
I used to pee myself when I get tickled.
Yeah, me too. I have an uncle who used to tickle me, and I feel like it was that there was a time where it could have, it crossed, because I now feel comfortable when I see him. So that tickling must have crossed some boundaries. But yeah, I pee myself when I get tickled, and the negative thoughts of someone who is just so nice. It had to be because of me, the feelings of that tickling from him. Yeah.
I had a family member who used to tickle me, and my grandmother was not okay with it. And I didn't understand why, because I was genuinely having a barrel of laughs. I was dying, but my grandmother, she didn't like it, and she kept asking me, "You okay with it?" I was like, "Yeah, it was laugh." Like, but I mean, thinking about it now, it's like, yeah.
She was like, yo, why you always tickling the child? Like,
yeah. She was like, And I mean, genuinely, it was just really just because I laugh like a crazy person. And so it was just for the laughs, but she just didn't like it. She didn't understand it at all. But in the same space of saying that we need to be able to raise children to have, to be able to say no and stuff. Also, I was watching, I was watching TV, so I was watching Netflix, and they had this thing about this gymnastics camp that had a doctor who was actually touching these girls.
Larry
and these
Nassar.
Big team.
Mind you, are saying girls, and they are coming to us as women. No, years later, after winning of like things and medals after medals, like you are totally retired out of gymnastics. You're a big woman now. Only now being able to tell, because they were covering that shit. That made me so angry, because they were coming and they were telling their parents, and their parents were speaking to the heads of the team, and they were like, And
it's the U.S. gymnastics team. It's not even like a side corner.
No,
it's literally like
some little country in the corner.
Not some state, not a little piece of state. It was not the national
the
team.
Whole thing. And this
the
one
people
girl
we watch at the Olympics.
She said once that she went to another doctor for something, or she was telling somebody how the how the exams went or how the session went, and they were like, "That's not how that goes." Imagine you are thinking that,
That's
yeah,
okay.
that's okay. That blew my mind because I'm like, these girls are now going to you for some sort of relief. You are in their faces being an actual good person to them, like in front of everybody, somebody that you think you can talk to, and you're not feeling good or you don't want to do this because you're so scared and blah blah blah, and I'm afraid of this and I'm afraid of that, and he's like yes and he's like yes, and they're comfortable.
And sometimes the parents were in the room. That's why it was so confusing for the kids because they couldn't
Yeah.
realize that their parents like couldn't really see. And so they were like, well, if mom is in here, then it must be okay. Like he was doing these pelvic floor adjustments internally. I don't know how much detail we're trying to go into, but it just was wild to me when
I mean, I
found that
can't go in
out.
detail because I don't remember.
No, but I'm just saying that part is what was happening. It was like,
Yeah.
and there are some pelvic floor therapies that can be internal, but these are underage children. Their parents never consented. They never consented to you going into their vagina. Like that problems are happening. And then they found child pornography on his home hard drive. So that just feels
and consent is a lot of things. Consent is stuff from posting on Instagram or Facebook, taking pictures and posting videos of just kids, and you have to ask their consent. Is that okay? Can I take a picture with you and post it? Can I post this thing that you put? Can I am I able to? And allowing them to say no and taking their no as a no. My niece, I asked her once, and she was like, well, you're going to do it anyway. And I'm like, no, I'm not. If you say no, it's not going to go. And she's learned consent from that. And now if I ask her and she says no, then it's going to be no. And she also now is asking the younger ones, can I tickle you? Can I kiss you? Can I give you a hug? Because consent, she knows consent, and she's teaching younger kids consent. I need another drink.
I love
Believe in drinks.
Let's dive into the next question while everybody refreshes. Anybody else needs to refresh their glass?
My bottle is done.
I'm so
done. My
sorry.
bottle is done too, and then my cork broke on my new bottle, so I have to find a wine opener.
Yeah, it did.
What is wrong with Giselle?
I only got a little. It was just a little bit. It wasn't the
I
whole
can
thing.
share blood of Rastaman to
Oh no, please keep that in spring.
Again, to our listeners, let me translate that for you. Blood of Rastaman equates Campari.
I love blood of Rastaman. That is so delicious.
I also love blood of Rastaman.
All
I have left is one single ice cube and some Coca-Cola, which is a sad affair, but I've been drinking my water. So.
And just now full again, I want to dedicate this drink to Rastaman.
To Rastaman.
Not dedicating anything.
Sickening behavior.
Well, as a queen, you don't need to do shit.
Are we doing this? Are we doing this one?
I think she did it.
She did it? You went to the airport yesterday?
I mean, I'll just add Rastaman and Rastadams.
I just want to know if she went to the airport yesterday. That's all.
I didn't see
She didn't go to the airport yesterday.
Plain just line with the Coke?
Plain just go with the brew.
Wow.
I told y'all.
Bro, let's go.
Nonsense. The second question, guys. So how treated differently in the workplace because of your gender? We got only 2 responses, and they were no, basically. So someone said no, but I know others who have been, and one other person said not in my line of work. Anybody else? I work for. So
I have a friend who she works in events in St. Lucia. I hope she's okay with me sharing this. But so she works in events, but she's tiny. You know how we short, but we have body and things. She's even shorter and have body. And she does interior design and decor and all of these things. And so a lot of people, they assume that she's just there arranging flowers and stuff. But she's actually putting on this event. So if something needs to be put up on a something and there's a ladder, she's going to go get it. And because she is so small, they have these guys who would just stand up on the side, watching her to see when she would fail before they could interject and save the day. But she is not like that. She is like us, plus 1,500. And so she is letting you know, okay, it's okay. I'm gonna do that. Like she goes to work in Tim's and everything because she is ready to get everything done for this event. Climb up, joke thing, like carry. And it's crazy. When she said that, I was like, yeah, I can see how a lot of people just be looking at you like, you came here to do this particular thing. I think we were expecting somebody a little more man, But she has her own business. Big up you if you're listening. Yeah, she has her own business and everything, doing amazing things. But just because of the fact that she was a woman and so tiny, there was all the let me hold off. Not so you're seeing her struggling and letting her struggling. You see
Oh no, I'd have been like, listen, while you're watching me, pick up something. Come on, dude.
Even when I'm like we doing events and stuff, I'm not waiting for nobody to carry no crate or anything for me. You would see me carrying, and I mean I will struggle, but I rather.
Wait, so would you rather do that than ask for someone to do it?
Me ask? Yes, I would rather do that than ask. Me.
That's just Giselle.
Me sometimes too, but also it's a
no. But if
practice
I
for me
know
to
that there's
say-
somebody that I can ask, but if I look around and it ain't looking like it would be much help, I'd rather do it myself. But like other than that, I don't think that I've personally had any gender bias in the workplace. I've been very, very, very fortunate in that regard.
So, my job when I first started, the boss was like, "I want you on the delivery van, so you can know what's going on." And people would always see me like jogging cases of wine because I sell wine. That's my real job. And they were like, "Oh my goodness, I never seen a lady deliver." And I'm like, "Why not?" But it taught me a lot. It taught me that people were like, first of all, some of them want to help, but they want to help for the wrong reasons. They want to help because they want to, oh, can I get your number afterwards? They're not trying to help for, legit reasons, but, and others will just sit back and watch you. And I'm like, look at me, I'm struggling, help me. And they don't care, they don't want to help, but it's my job, so I'm gonna do it anyway. But, yeah, sometimes you just have to do it. And my GM right now, she has a lot of issues, but she will get down and dirty. She will pick up cases. She will do all kinds of stuff. She will sweep, she will clean, she will do all kinds of stuff that, is not a traditional female thing to do. And she will just do it. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Because sometimes you need to let people see, male and female, that this is accomplishable by anyone.
Mhm.
This is, there's no such thing as a male job or a female job. We're all working. Done. Yeah.
I just wanna make an insertion for the independent bad bitches out here that don't want to be strong Black women. I just want to say, there is room for us. No, notice I'm saying us. There is room for us too. Yes, I can carry that ladder, but also, why should I?
Why?
But what if it's just me and you? What if it's me and you?
Then let's carry it together. But the
We'll
point
carry
is, why
it
the fuck
together,
I
but
do the
also I
work?
just feel like,
It's like we
Giselle
don't.
and I have just okay. There's a different conversation around this. Giselle and I have worked in the same work environment where we were we were treated differently, not because of our gender, but because of our age, and we were expected to do double, triple the work, and we would always get the caveat, "Y'all young, y'all could handle it," and I was teaching. I was the class mistress of one class. Imagine that. So I have a class that I'm in charge of, co-teaching, but in charge of a class, and also teaching two other classes, two of which were examined at a national level. So one was a competency class and one was a CPA class. And I was expected to manage these 3 grade years simply because I was young, and apparently young people don't get tired. Sometimes in other conversations, I'm expected to be strong, independent, and Black. No, I don't want to carry my own bag to the car. Help me out. I don't want to work all these hours. Put me in house. I want to add some shirts.
Yeah, and I was actually going to bring up something similar, right? Like I was going to bring up the place, but I wasn't going to bring up the expected because of our age, because of the fact that we're not married, we don't have children.
Yeah, that comes up
So you can
all the
you
time.
can stay so that we can prepare these ingredients for this event. I don't want to do that. Why not? You don't have no chick, no child, so you can't cook.
You got to work on Saturday. You have no children and nobody home.
I don't want to. I can help in other ways. Like on the day, I'm probably one of the more hardworking persons there. You understand? Like actually doing the stuff at the time, because that's what I would do in an actual like setting. I'm that worker on the day thing. That preparing ingredients and those type of things, then actually not, you had to know where your skills lie, dog. I'm going to salt your thing.
I hate when people make those insensitive assumptions, because I'm a woman in her 30s. I don't have kids right now. I mean, part of the reason is because I've decided, like right now, I'm not in a space where I want children. But a couple years ago, it was a conversation that I would have had. And I've had to sit through work discussions where they were trying to figure out how to add more hours to, for example, some person's work schedule. Oh, because this person has a kid in college, we should get them on this contract, let them do some more work. And some of the rebuttals would be like, yeah, Yana, you don't have kids. Basically, I have nothing going on because I don't have children, or I'm a single woman.
And that your investments don't matter, that only investing in children would matter. So whatever you're doing with your time and money.
Other conversation where you have no idea the reason why I don't have kids right now. Do we want to have an organizational discussion of my fertility issues? Whether I do or I don't, because
or your financial obligations, or
whatever
anything.
The case is, there's this assumption that if you're single or if you're unmarried or if you're childless, that is because of some decision or some wrong turn that you made, whereas this might literally be my life. This might not even be my choice, some of it. And there's an insensitivity towards it. Also, like I was saying before, put me in house.
I was thinking about it for the topic as well.
Closing arguments. I love that that's your closing statement. Just take this away, please. Agreed.
I believe in equality. I believe in choice, and I choose not to be independent. Somebody come take me off these streets.
I was thinking about the same thing in terms of oh my God.
I had to.
With a nanny, a housekeeper, and a driver, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I told my dad yesterday, I was like, Daddy, I can't bring nobody home for you. And like before, I used to be like, someone to build with, even if they don't necessarily have too much, I'll wait until they build. I'm like, yo, you give me a good life my whole life. I go and deal with somebody who cannot help me. And
somebody dusty son.
You gave me a good life my whole life, and I'm supposed to struggle? No.
Struggle, baby.
I mean, listen, I don't know. People complain about the streets. I'm not sure I have complaints at the moment.
Listen, some of us been walking these streets a long time.
I know. It's nice
to get our soul replaced.
And the map.
No, I'm just good. Listen. The
all
street
kind
is
of thing.
just, you know, when the street just is shiny and new, it's like, wow, the street just, it
It's
just
the
is.
Mm-mm.
it's when they just pave
I have made my
the road.
quota of steps. I do not need any more walking out. I am ready to cock up my foot. Somebody, please. Grenada doesn't even have a sidewalk. Rescue me.
Don't think you should say somebody, Ayana, because you know, you know,
Wait,
you
I
know.
said, y'all, please put Ayana in house because if
No, because when she get the
Also, wait, hold on, let me
proposition
just
now,
say
she
it.
will say no.
Listen, well, I mean, she still has her discretion, obviously, but I will say, as somebody who traverses Tayana's current home often, you will not be disappointed with this woman in your house.
It's true.
In fact, you'll be very, very happy about your decision in life.
Cooks. The food is
You would think that they
She,
would, eh?
listen,
The
this
person
woman
to
makes
appreciate
a
the food is the woman.
ritual out of just bedtime and just taking care of her skin. Like, yo, that's what you want. Somebody who just shows you like how to live a nourished, soft, loving life. You know,
We
may we
pray
all
God
have
to
that.
give these men
gotta
the spirit of
remember.
discernment and recognition for the talents and the abilities of our friend Diana.
I need a
Discernment,
need a tambourine
recognition,
moment.
Yo, this is killing
discernment
me
and
right
recognition.
So,
Because
no, because the streets are tough, eh? And for people who are new to the streets, think of the streets being like, you know, that point in time between Juve when the last jab will really leave the streets and they put the sand so it looked clean again. And down comes the parade, people in their beautiful clothes. And you think, oh, this is so clean beneath me. But what it really is the sand and oil and it
Your
does
foot black.
Oh no, but okay, well, hold on. I honestly, I've also come to realize that I will say that I think a small piece of my experience may have to do with the fact that men aren't my only option. Because I feel like, honestly, that's God bless them. And you know, I could never put myself in a box. Just when I want to put myself in a box, I see somebody in life, I'm just passing, you know. And I'm like, nah, there's no box for me. But I will say that I think that my friends who are I want to say unfortunately, but that's not, you know, it's your life. But for my friends who that their options are limited to men, I think it's more difficult dating. I lie? I don't
Yeah,
know.
no. My problem is so you have been able to jump out of one box, and that I am currently struggling with a very specific box. And I just need to explore more within that gender. Right now, I am anchored to a genre of men. And I really need to listen. I need the rapture to take me away.
Oh, just even out of that genre.
Just from this, release me from the shackles.
release her, release her, release
Of
her,
Rastaman.
release her.
Release me from the shackles.
You gotta do the rock with it to her. Release her.
Ashamalalala.
Hey,
Yo,
I
okay,
didn't say God.
listen. We need
Please,
to cool it
release
because
her.
I already need to. So please.
Dare I say us?
Yes, sir. Because please, somebody page on the Palo Santo, bring everything that you can. Let's just some cleansing around here. Some holy
Release
water,
her slow. Release her
river
slow.
water, something gotta give. Florida water, what else use? All kinds of things. Just something, anything. Because you need to get out of the genre, maybe. Sometimes
Sorry,
it's stuff.
I was just adjusting my crown.
Oh. Hey, listen, let's move to so these other questions that we used. We didn't keep them as open question form. We had them as polls. So I'll just read what are in the polls too. So this one is: do you feel like your body is being policed by people around you, your religion, or fear of being attacked. We have 25% saying fear of being attacked, 25% saying my religious beliefs, and 50% saying scrutiny from people around me. Ayisha.
Well, I feel like, okay, I want to talk about Nia Long.
Yes. Pop culture.
Pop culture.
Tell us. Do it.
Yes, I cannot pronounce Nia Long's boyfriend, ex-boyfriend. I cannot pronounce his name,
Ime
and I don't know.
Udoka.
Ime
Yes.
Aduka.
Say the first name. Ume.
Ume. Is it?
Ime.
I-
Ume.
Ime
Okay.
Udoka.
So he got suspended from being the Nigerian Celtics coach, which is something we do not have in America as a Black male coach and a basketball, because he had an affair or slept with, I'm now finding out, two of his subordinates or women who worked in his company. First of all, him and Nia Long were not together at the time. That's what they were saying. They took a break. They've been engaged for 10 years.
Yeah, one of the articles I saw said he's technically he's an unmarried man. They didn't say single, said unmarried, because even though he is engaged, legally he's single.
10 years. They've been 10 years, engaged for 10 years. So are you married, engaged, what? And he been having an affair. So I feel like he should not have been fired. Or suspended.
Mhm.
But then again, the power dynamic of this man with these women, they work under him. Even if they didn't work in his department, maybe they were in marketing and he was in training or anything like that. Like he should not have been penalized for that. That's my opinion on that situation. He should not have been penalized because there are so many other white men doing crazy shit and getting away with it. But this one Nigerian coach is in trouble for this. These men have been doing this shit. They've been doing cocaine. They've been doing alcohol, violence, all kinds of shit, and getting away with it. And this man had consensual sex with two women and is now being penalized for that.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
There's a disparity because we don't know. For one, they're in the process of an investigation. Based on one of the articles I read, they're in the process of an investigation. So they need to determine whether it was consensual. It seems to be
whether it was.
Well, the initial article that I read said that it was consensual, but then the one I read tonight said that there's an investigation because there seem to have been some like comments and like that he would, or some messages that he sent to them, and they need to check to see whether these messages were consensual or not. My thing is, if it is a company policy and he needs to be fired or he needs to receive some sort of disciplinary action, then do what you have to do according to, the rules of your organization.
Yeah.
I question if it is that it was consensual, if they do find it to be consensual, why aren't the women being reprimanded? That would be it. Because if it takes two hands to clap, maybe if it was a situation where there was power play and that needs to become a conversation, then fine, do what you need to do. But if it is that it's still, actually, we only know what's in tabloids and social media. So there definitely is a bigger conversation that's taking place internally, and maybe they have all the facts and that's why they did all they did and the way that they did it. So I can only assume that it was done properly, but based on the information that we have access to, it doesn't seem like the women are receiving any backlash from it. If it is that it was a fair consensual relationship, then they both need to be fairly disciplined.
All three of them.
My question was, are they white women? Because at what point does bad behavior when is it equal to reprimandable behavior? Like, how does me cheating have anything to do with me being fired?
The women were married, or one of the women was married. So who cheated? A married woman or engaged man?
But I
I'm
think
They
glad you
both
said that,
cheated. They
Ayesha.
both cheated.
but I don't
Thing
think
that-
this is. I think the cheating is.
Wait, hold on. Ayesha, you said one of the women was married, but
Yes, Neil Long and the coach were broken up. Who cheated?
yeah, but one of the married women, one of these other pods that I listened to mentioned that, and don't quote me, I'll fact check while we discuss, but the married woman was married to one of the upper managers. So
Oh, there we go. Going on already.
Yeah,
Man.
I
Alright.
think, but I think this is a part where it could be tabloids, news, whatever, kind of like maybe made some assumptions. In general, if he wasn't in the public eye, like here, I work with companies that have policies that employees should not fraternize with each other, no matter if you're in the same department, in different departments, and so on. It's an immediate reason for termination. So I don't necessarily think that he got terminated for cheating. He got terminated for the policy, but I agree that it is not fair. Oh, so yeah, suspended. But I agree that in this case, as Ayesha pointed out, that for someone who's in the public eye, for other men that have done that or worse, have not gotten the same. It's been more like a slap on the wrist or a slap on the hand, right? Versus him actually getting suspended. So I don't think the suspension has to do with the cheating part, because that doesn't make any sense for a company to do that. Yeah, it's just pure bullshit.
So as a person who has been in a relationship with a person I've worked with on many times, many times,
Please stop.
many times, but many romances or affairs happen in the workplace. I've worked in restaurants. You know, everybody's fucking everybody in restaurants. When you go eat, know that the waitress is fucking the bartender, is fucking the cook, is fucking the dishwasher. This is just life. When you in the bank, the teller is fucking the person at the desk, is fucking the manager. But this is because these are the people you spend the most times with. I've never been a teacher, so I don't know nothing about the teacher life. So somebody has to tell me that. But I feel like the people
I was a teacher. That's the one place where I worked, besides working for myself, was as a teacher, and I was fucking a coworker. So yeah, that was the one.
Happened.
when I was a teacher, I worked with mostly women. So
it is a power dynamic, as in who has the most power, but it's also where you spend the most time. You spend more time with your coworkers than you spend with your child, spend with your spouse. And this is what happens in that space. So I feel like there needs to be some kind of grace given to work affairs.
Yeah, for sure. But that's where HR policies that
discretion.
Again, this is just from my experience of conversations that I've been in part of for like my own clients, corporate customers who have, when they have their policies, like even at least for here, for people in restaurants, it's written almost in every handbook, but there are definitely more places that give grace, as you said, Ayesha. But I think it's in a way for like HR to just make sure, because like HR's problem or area that they're going to focus on is that something that should not lead to like sexual harassment. So HR, why they might be for the people, they're actually for their company, right? They're actually looking out for their company, where it should be the vice versa, actually, right? But it's like they put these rules in place to be like, well, let's just make sure we don't get caught up in this mess, and therefore we get to terminate you, without actually listening to that reasoning of like, you know, this is maybe something that blossomed to a relationship. Maybe it wasn't a wham bam thank you ma'am type of scenario, but like agree with that period of grace. And like I think that's where, as I said, with the coach, Neil Long's ex, the ladies, I don't know, maybe we don't know if they're getting reprimanded. If they're trying to do this based on corporate policy, then all of them should be reprimanded. But at the same time, then it needs to be the same rule for all, not for blacks, not for whites. It has to be across the board.
Cancel culture.
Just to add more context, I found the article that speaks it specifically. It says that Ime Udoka, Celtics coach, had a consensual affair with a female staff member who is also the wife of a senior VP. And they also finally released the woman's name before it was not released. So this article reveals who she is, and it says that as far as they say, no repercussions for her. But the article does comment, unfortunately, the woman is also the VP's wife. So we don't know. They
Power
said
play.
it's deemed a violation of the franchise's code of conduct. It was an improper, intimate, and consensual relationship with a female member of the team staff who happens to be the wife of a senior vice president.
She was married and he was not.
My
No
thing
wonder
is,
she didn't get
who's the
reprimanded.
person in power right now? Then I think she's the one who holds
She's
the
the
power.
one. She's the one, the person of power.
There's definitely
He
more.
was married and he was not. Morality, everything. She was married and he was not.
VP, bro. She was probably promising him things. I mean,
Not
but
even that. She probably knew
That's
that nothing
all
would
that.
happen to her if she got caught.
I feel
Yeah,
bad.
well, she's not an employee, or she was. She was an
She's
employee.
a staff member,
She's a
yeah.
staff
I
member.
think there are
Oh,
many
right.
reasons why this topic became big.
Oh, him
There
up
might
on
be some, some hate because he is, as Ayisha mentioned, a Nigerian,
yeah.
major league coach. And then also the fact that her husband is a senior VP, I think that might also bear some weight. But then also within the R&B hip hop, at least the Black community, it's the fact that he cheated on Nia Long. So I think that was trending for its own reason. That has nothing to do with
No,
HR.
I would be mad too. Nia Long
But they weren't together,
break. Thank you.
They were
right?
on break.
They were on a break.
I mean,
Alright.
we don't know. Facts is legally
He has not said
he is
anything.
single.
Yes. She said anything? Anybody got a ring?
But how dare he fumble Nia Long?
That was trending.
And so that was trending, that the fact that Nia Long, she's doing these movies and she didn't have time to support her man. So of course he had to be there with somebody who was gonna support him because she wasn't there for him. And this is now the narrative that blames Nia Long for not being there for her man, and that's why he cheated.
Okay, so hold on. Question to whoever came up with that on the internet, right? If it is that this was an office affair, let's go with the story. It's an office affair. Why she didn't go and fuck she husband in his office? Because senior VP, she's a staff, he's just another staff member. It's not just an issue of proximity because your husband works in the same workplace. So
no, it's the taboo. The office affair has the taboo to it. It's about walking past someone and there's this electricity and nobody else knows, or maybe they get it eventually, but there's something about the energy of the buildup in that co-working environment.
Electricity, the shock, Malaika.
I've heard.
The shock. It is the shock from them thing, though. It is the shock.
I mean, a little shock is okay.
Hey.
But when you're fighting, and you're fighting, but people don't know, and they wonder why you calling them a bitch. Why you being
yeah, in the co-working. Oh, at work. Yeah, at work. Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have that problem. I call them a bitch anyway.
They say don't shit where you eat, but I mean, who else you gonna be around?
Exactly. Who else? Like, you don't meet anybody else. Like, I don't.
We need to change that, by the way.
or don't work so often. Like you're there 40, 50 hours, 60 hours a week. You're home and then you're sleeping. Where are you gonna be? Who else are you gonna meet?
I mean, it's true.
I want us to like just do the last two questions. I think the last question itself we kind of touched on a lot, but I'll still mention it. So basically the one before the last is women's rights, or are women's rights? Oh my God, that was bad. That was me. Are women's rights?
It's late, you're forgiven.
Wait,
right?
Ro, did we answer the policing
think
question? I
The
think that's where we
policing,
shifted to Nia Long, right?
Oh, we
yeah,
did.
yeah.
but so it was, in case somebody needs a reminder, do you feel like your body is being pushed by people around you, your religion, or fear of being attacked?
What was the response in the polls?
It changed up a bit. So 40% fear of being attacked, 20% my religious beliefs, and 40% scrutiny from people around me. I think it's all.
I think
Well,
I've been through all at various points
religious.
in my life and in my religious journey.
For me, not so much, just because I've always been a bustier girl, so I've had to wear whatever fits me, right? So I didn't feel like, I felt like they were trying to tell me to do stuff. I'm like, are you gonna buy it?
Oh,
For
the
my
cover yourself up statements.
Yeah,
Like,
'cause, like,
hello, what is it you want me to do here?
in my Sunday school, it became a thing where maybe y'all shouldn't hug so much because the boys seemed like they wanted to hug me tighter and longer because they can press up against my breast. So like, I guess they were trying to please maybe the boys more than me, because I don't think anybody think they could tell me anything. I just do what I want.
Freaky Friday in 5th grade, they wanted to chase me and they chased no other girls. I had boobies, nobody else. So why do they want to chase you so much? What are you doing? Nothing. I am wearing and I was a Muslim and I covered at the time, but I had boobies. So they know when they caught me, they could.
Yep. They could cop a feel.
Yes.
They could cop a feel. Men are very slick from even at a young age like that. They've been copping feels for a long time.
Because boys will be boys. We just say boys will be boys and we let it
Locker room
happen.
talk.
You know?
Or like it still runs across of like, well, if you
But I
don't
like
want men,
too.
you know, catcalling you and all that stuff, you shouldn't be wearing that. You
Well,
shouldn't
okay,
be,
so
you know,
just
like
yeah, I
yeah.
think in response to the question, I would say my immediate response was actually no. I feel the people I've chosen to have in my life right now are so affirming. We all look different, but I feel comfortable in my body. I feel good. I feel appreciative of them and their bodies, and that all of us would just look good together in our different bodies. And also, even in my work, I think as a yoga teacher and a yoga therapist, wearing skin tight clothing for my job has just made me just fully appreciate my body and just embrace every part of me. And sure, I have to deal sometimes with people saying shit in the road, but that's rare still now. I feel yeah, it feels more rare lately, but I've had really disrespectful moments, even teaching kids and guys harassing me like in a
Oh, US is
public
so bad.
setting. Yeah, but here it happened as well, you know. And but you know, and also very recently my grandma was visiting and she saw a peak of my waist beads and I was like, she's like, what's that? I was like, waist beads. She's like, so why are you not showing it off? And literally from that moment I was like, Nana said, and now I just am that bitch who wears my waist beads outside. And I'm like, this is it's working for this phase of my life right now. It's giving what it needs to give. And it's also just me being like, this is my body. Just because it's bigger in certain places or more curvaceous, I should still be allowed to wear it and not have it be something that's lewd or something that's inappropriate. You know, it's my body. And I think we need to be better about, yes, embracing bodies and sensuality and being turned on, but also embracing bodies as forms and not objects, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I feel
you
like
know?
yeah, I to your point, Malika, like I feel like as someone who's like plus size, like the narrative, whether I mean for me, I've always had like very supportive family and friends as well, but like the narrative from society is that like the bigger you are, the more that you need to cover up, right? Like
Mhm.
what those people that are wearing bikinis or like Lizzo that's leading this, you know, kind of like evolution of like it's okay to like show off your body in any size you want. You shouldn't be ashamed of your body, but yet society's like, if you see some of those comments, are like, oh my God, what is she doing? She needs to stop eating what she's eating. She needs to cover herself up. I don't want to see that roll. I don't want to see her, you know, boobs out. Like it's just, it's quite maddening, but it's just, as you said, it's like as we continue these conversations, are people starting to feel more comfortable just showing off?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Being themselves.
Yeah.
I love carnival. I love carnival for that because even though many people are like, I'm working out, everybody just shows up in every size that they are and just is like looking and feeling so good. That is one piece of carnival that is really amazing.
I told people from time, I'm like, let me tell you something. Carnival, this road, this summer, getting whatever body I put out there. So yes, I'm working out, but my ass stopped working out a month before carnival because of things that just wasn't working. Whatever. I say, listen, make the waist of my panties a little higher and just make it a little tuck right here so we can pull in what the belly going outside. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a problem, that's your business. But like how are we kind of helping? So like I don't think my parents police my body. I think what they do is preserve their sanity and preserve their life outside and not go to jail. Because my dad was like very adamant about me not wearing leggings when I work with him because there's a lot of workmen around and whatever. So he's like, I don't want to have to shoot nobody. Just put on some jeans and a shirt. And I know he's not trying to make me feel a type of way. He just doesn't want to have the problem to deal with. Because when I was much younger, he would have had to deal with a workman asking about if he has a nice daughter for him. And the man had to almost kill him. so like I know he's not policing my body necessarily. So like how do we teeter that line of, and it's strange for me to even try and like get into that question. But it's like how do we help them kind of preserve like how they want to dress, but also in a way that may possibly make them safer. And I know nothing can make you safe from someone who will sexually assault you or rape you. But like it's something that's a little bit safer than, how do we teeter that line and talk about that in the first place?
I mean, I think that should be education. That as kind of starting from the root of like, none of that should, and you said it Ro, already, that none of that should tie back to like what level of safety will I have walking out of this house.
Yeah.
But also making decisions that feel comfortable for you. I have people who come to do yoga with me who change before they go on a bus or go run their errands. I choose to wear my yoga clothes or like, be in leggings outside because I feel safe. I'm driving. There's factors that I've made that decision. And I think it's about, letting people feel empowered to make the decision. Like if you don't want to deal with people shouting you out, then maybe you just choose to wear something else. So we all make that choice sometimes,
We move into the next question really quickly. And that was, are women's rights white women's rights or white rights? As we see it right now. In terms of
that before?
We talked. I think we talked about the abortion, right? Or
so in my mom, I talk about being a feminist, and my mom is like, feminist is a white woman's thing, and I'm like, but how? Because she's like, well, Black women have always worked, and Black women have always had these rights, and Black women have always been these places, and feminism is white women trying to work and trying to burn their bras and trying to be what Black women have always had, because Black women have always been out there. And I'm like, it's more than that. It's more than that. Feminism and women's rights is more than a white woman thing. We need to be able to work and make the same amount of money than white men or men are making, or be able to have the job. A woman plumber should make the same amount as a white male, Spanish male. Just because I'm Black doesn't mean I am less of a thing. I have a cousin actually, who's a Mason. Why she can't make the same as a white Mason or a black Mason or a Spanish Mason just because she's a Mason, and her craft should be enough that she's a Mason. Her work should be
That's an
enough
interesting
that she's a
perspective.
woman.
Yeah.
I never thought of it in that way, Ayisha. Thanks for bringing that up. Like, I never thought of it as Black women have always had to work. We've always had to be able to earn our keep or make our place or have purpose in society or, serve some purpose. I never really thought of it that way, that, we've been now, I mean, I think it's just different struggles for sure. We're looking for the right to get the recognition and the compensation for our labor that is fair, but we're definitely at different points of the struggle, and not that one is ahead or one is behind. I think it's just different, completely different things we're fighting for, or we're asking for.
Well, I think that white and black in that case, it's like too much of a monolith. I think feminism is about, it has to be intersectional, because women are both women and white and poor, women and white and rich, women and black and poor, women and black and rich, women immigrants, women who are in their native country, women in the global north, women who aren't. And to say that because some of the kind of what we have coined as feminism started out of a place of like equal work and to say that that is what feminism is limited to, it's no, that was one spark in a movement that has been happening. Black women have been feminists without necessarily using the language of feminism. So I think, we can fall into more divisive traps or lean into the ways that we can be a part of making it inclusive by showing up to say this, we can own this word too. Bell Hooks, I haven't read it personally. I think I got it from my mom years ago, but Bell Hooks has a book called Feminism is for Everybody. And it's just a thin little book. I need to dig it up on the shelf somewhere. But, it's that question of how do we show up and make sure that it's not just a white woman thing as well, by saying this is for us and our women, and also making our own movements. We don't have to identify with feminism to do things for women's rights as well. We don't have to co-opt that language either.
Exactly. Because I feel like my grandmother, she single mom, she did whatever, and her son was the Minister of Education in Grenada. Now, when you think of the Minister of Education in Grenada, his parents had to be married, he had to be in certain schools, but he didn't have that. So Grenada and Black women, we have been in the forefront of what feminism in the United States wanted to be a long time ago, but that's all we knew. Women, strong women doing a thing. That's all we knew. Strong women doing a thing.
I also think feminism is about the soft life too, though, I will say. I think the option to
Put
not
me in
be
house.
a strong woman. Exactly.
Let me get strong from the kitchen sink.
Because feminism is also recognizing how much labor is domestic labor. Domestic labor goes unpaid. Yo, listen, breastfeeding, I breastfed my son for almost 3 years. And when you calculate, especially in the first year, how many hours is spent breastfeeding and pumping, it's the equivalent of a full-time job. I have clients who are pregnant who are juggling between vacation days and limited to 3 months maternity leave and sick leave and trying to get a break at the end of their pregnancy because they're growing a whole human, and then also not eat into the precious 3 months that they have with their child. And how did I get to birth work? I don't know, but here we are. We're at birth. Once again.
I think that
Thank you. We appreciate. Thank you.
I have no clue how we reached there.
I think the topic of like, is women's rights, white rights, kind of comes from like historically. There's a book that's out. There's a book that I was just kind of reading through. It's called White Feminism, and it actually talks about the timeline of like essentially when the women rights movement started, which actually historically goes back to like the suffragettes as far as like documentation. But at that time, where it was shortly after, right, the emancipation, and of course, but still women, Black women specifically, were not allowed to these conventions that were meant to focus on women's rights. And at that time, and even now, I'm going all the way to the 1960s when the NOW organization, so National Organization of Women, was formed. It was still points that were just focused on, as we said, kind of like the one-to-one equalization of what between men and women in the corporate ladder and in the political ladder. It did not focus on things that would have been important outside of that, which again kind of alienated, right, the African American community. But at the same time, it was the African American women that had the influence on the 15th Amendment, which was the voting rights for African American men, and then had a huge influence on the 19th Amendment, which was the women's right to vote, but still not actually being recognized in those movements where they actually had a lot. And as you said, like Bell Hooks, when she came out with that information of like, we have to show up, but also understanding that like there were areas that they weren't allowed to show up, yet still fighting the fight in the back end and making sure that like things that were important to the community were also being surfaced, but just kind of not surfaced in a bigger movement.
Because Black women and women, Caribbean women, we always were here. We were the teachers, we were the revolutionaries.
Yeah.
When you look at Grenada Revolution and the women who took a part in the Grenada Revolution, and Malaika, you know, you did the paper.
Well, and Dr. Phillip, listen, there's a good book, Dr. Nicole Phillip, a lot of us had her in common at TAMCC. She has a book called Women in Grenadian History, and it's definitely one to have on your shelves. And she speaks about women in the Grenada Revolution, but also different points in Grenadian history.
We took it, the women took it. We pushed our narrative. We pushed the Black narrative, African narrative. We pushed it. We didn't stay home because we couldn't. And the white narrative, American, were like, oh, we want to get out the house and get a job. But we always worked.
Yeah.
We always worked.
But that's also class. Like, I think America does a good job of hiding its poor white people. And you bump up in these communities and they sensationalize it on channels like TLC, you know, but there's just a lot of struggling ass white people as well. But that doesn't fit the image of America. And that's part of what fuels racial tension, is that poor white people are not being like seen as like struggling, you know, they're kind of separate and silent because whiteness is supposed to be connected to wealth and stability. And so I think that's also part of it, is like the class piece, definitely.
Let's I mean, I don't think we necessarily have to go through this last question, but I'll just say it. Do you think that the laws surrounding abortion are meant to preserve life?
I feel like we could just share the listeners' answers, right?
Discussion at the beginning on this topic. Maybe just let's hear what our listeners have to say.
So that was one of the poll questions, and the responses were either protecting the lives of babies or another way to police our bodies. 100% chose another way to police our bodies. So listeners are at.
Yeah. We definitely.
I love this episode.
This was great.
Yeah, I think it's a great job going through everything.
Thank you so much for joining us, Malaika and Ayisha.
We really
appreciate having us.
I think you definitely enriched the conversation tonight. I love your perspectives and your contributions, and thank you so much for being so honest and vulnerable and
open
your unique and individual story.
Oh, Marcel.
I love it.
That's cute.
Marcel gave you that? I think she gave me one too. Yeah. Oh, I love her.
For our listeners, Ayisha's holding up a sign. A well-read woman is a dangerous creature. What a way to summarize this episode, actually.
Yes.
I just
thank you so much.
Oh my God.
Listen, Ro, I can send you a laptop, or what's going on with your laptop that because your iPad is just real having fun with you,
Who's remote controlling that?
I like it.
I don't know what it's doing.
What's happening? I just wanted to make sure I plugged you guys social media accounts, so you can get onto Malaika's page when you search Spice Harmony Yoga, right? Or you can go onto her other page, which is Malaika.
BSL.
There we go. And then Ayisha, you can get onto Camp Glow with Camp Glow _ Grenada. So get onto them on Instagram, interact. Tell
me. Why visit me, Ayisha?
Yes, Ayisha's hilarious on her. I was gonna say, please.
So it's Ayisha.Josephine.
Or at Instagram, but it's Ayisha Bernstein on Facebook because one day I'm gonna marry a Jewish guy, and we're gonna have last name.
That's why her name is Bernstein.
Oh my God,
I love it.
You know how long I'm trying to get B's attention? No, you're too late now.
It's fine.
I'm always with it. I'm with it.
I'll do it. It's fine.
I mean, I was doing it. I don't know what I'm doing.
This red dress is just taking.
I like how Ayisha just got into it. Like,
I mean, I did too, but I was like, do
even Malaika jumped
here?
on. She was like, "Oh shit, not it."
I've been calling B for a hot second.
No, but
just to our listeners.
Oh God.
Someone has to close off this episode and do our outro. And sneakily, Giselle touched her nose, which means that she's not it. I touched my nose. I'm not it. Malaika isn't it. Ayisha isn't it. Baha.
Listen,
Baha isn't it. So Rohan is it, and she's gonna do the outro for us.
Well, she hosted today, so I don't see why not.
I was like,
I mean, no, that's not. I mean, sometimes one starts and one finishes, but Ro, it's all about you tonight, baby.
Okay, no problem.
This was so amazing, and I thank you guys for having me. It's just, I love it. Thank you.
Feel free to come back.
Official vote of thanks.
These are. We love them so much, and we really, really, really appreciate you guys coming in and chatting with us. And we hope that we can do this again. So we'll meet your Instagram accounts and your Facebook accounts on when we post the video on YouTube. We'll add it also to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. So once again, guys, this has been an episode of Straight No Chaser, and you can find us at straightnochaser.podcast. Lord have mercy.
Rohan's camera is dead set on exposing her on the YouTubes.
You want to give a final show before you leave?
I know, right? I want to expose me that I have no, thank God I wear pants. I wasn't planning on.
Oh my God, that is very highly possible that you would leave it in panty.
Exactly.
We've all done it.
Who's not doing it right now?
Right?
Crazy.
Rohan, because our cameras are stopped.
Oh yeah.
My camera's definitely a stalker. But whatever. I need y'all to stalk our page and go on to straightnochaser.podcast and listen to us on YouTube, on Spotify, on Anchor, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you
get your podcast.
There she is.
That's my role.
Thanks so much for joining us, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.